The Forbidden Galaxy. The command bridge of the Galactic Coalition exploration vessel Astral Seeker fell silent as the swirling mass of the Milky Way galaxy filled the view screen. Its spiral arms stretched across the void like a cosmic whirlpool, beautiful yet menacing in its forbidden outer. Captain Lyra Velthor, her scaled skin shimmering with tension induced by luminescence, leaned forward in her command chair. 6 standard cycles of interstellar travel had brought them to the edge of what Coalition space charts labeled simply as Quarantine Zone Alpha. No official explanation existed for the designation, just ancient warnings passed down through generations of spacefaring species. Sensors are detecting the boundary markers, Captain, reported Science Officer Krell Knox, his 4 eyes blinking in sequence as he studied his console. The Quetrian scientist's crystalline exoskeleton clicked softly as he adjusted controls with his manipulator appendages. The warning beacons are primitive but functional. Some appear to be over 8,000 years old. Lyra nodded, her cranial ridges flexing with curiosity. Status of the beacons. Still active, Krell replied, surprise evident in his harmonically layered voice. They're broadcasting the same message in 342 different linguistic formats, all variations of danger, do not enter. First Officer Darvin Rowe moved to stand beside the captain's chair, his gelatinous form rippling with concern. 8,000 years of maintenance is unprecedented. Someone wants very badly to keep others away. Or to keep something in, muttered Security Chief Malazex from her tactical station. The Vordax warrior's dermal armor plates shifted uneasily, a rare display of discomfort from the usually stoic officer. Lyra studied the galaxy before them. The Coalition had mapped and explored nearly 30% of the known universe, establishing peaceful contact with over 900 sentient species. Yet here was an entire galaxy, one relatively close to Coalition space, that remained completely untouched, surrounded by warnings so ancient they predated most of their civilizations. The Council's orders were clear, Lyra said finally. We're to investigate the source of the quantum disturbances emanating from this region. Too many ships have reported navigational anomalies near this boundary. Permission to speak freely, Captain, Krell asked, his crystalline form refracting the bridge lights in patterns that signaled anxiety. Always, Science Officer. The ancient texts from the Archivist Conclave mention this galaxy specifically. They call it the Cradle of Shadows and warn that awakening what sleeps within would bring about the final night of stars. I believe we should proceed with extreme caution. Lyra considered this. The archivists were known for their melodramatic record-keeping, but they were rarely wrong about cosmic threats. Navigator Tela, plot a course that skirts the boundary. We'll probe from a distance first. The young Aerolith at the helm nodded, her feathered appendages fluttering as she input commands. Course plotted, Captain. Proceed at reduced velocity, Lyra ordered. The Astral Seeker glided forward, its quantum engines humming as it approached the invisible line that had kept explorers at bay for millennia. As they neared the boundary, something unexpected happened. Captain, I'm detecting an anomalous signal, Communications Officer Ziv announced, his bioluminescent antennae twitching. It's responding to our presence. Source? Lyra demanded. Unknown. It's not coming from the warning beacons. Signal pattern suggests artificial intelligence, but it's unlike any Coalition algorithms. The main view screen flickered, and strange symbols began scrolling across it. Mathematical equations, astronomical coordinates, and what appeared to be an invitation. It's a first contact protocol, Krell whispered, his crystalline body vibrating with excitement. Someone inside the galaxy is reaching out to us specifically. Or something is luring us in, Mala countered, her tactical station already calculating combat scenarios. Lyra studied the equations. Krell, what's your assessment? The Science Officer hesitated. The mathematics are elegant, advanced. Whoever sent this understands principles that even our best Coalition scientists are only beginning to theorize. This isn't primitive technology. Could it be a trap? Darvin asked, his gelatinous form swirling with concerned patterns. Before anyone could respond, a new signal burst through their communications array. Unlike the mathematical invitation, this was direct and unmistakable. Coalition vessel, this is Captain Elias Chen of the Earth Defense Force Scout Ship Horizon. You are approaching restricted space. Please identify yourselves and state your intentions. The bridge crew exchanged shocked glances. The transmission was in perfect coalition standard, a linguistic achievement that should have been impossible for a species inside an isolated galaxy. Open a channel, Lyra ordered, straightening in her chair as the view screen changed to show their unexpected contact. The being that appeared was Bictal, with a protective suit that obscured most physical details. However, its face was visible through a transparent helmet section. Soft features, no scales or exoskeleton, with curious patches of fiber on the top and lower portion of its head. 2 eyes, 1 mouth, a remarkably simple design compared to most Coalition species. This is Captain Lyra Velthor of the Galactic Coalition exploration vessel Astral Seeker. We are conducting a scientific survey of quantum disturbances in this region. The being, Captain Chen, studied them with an unnervingly calm expression. Interesting. The Coalition has historically respected the quarantine markers. What's changed? The casual reference to the Coalition sent another ripple of shock through the bridge. Lyra managed to keep her composure, her scales maintaining a steady blue-green professional hue. You seem familiar with our organization, yet we have no records of contact with species from this galaxy. Chen smiled. At least Lyra assumed it was a smile, based on her xenobiological training. That's by design, Captain Velthor. However, your arrival coincides with changing circumstances. We've been expecting someone to eventually investigate the recent quantum fluctuations. You know about the disturbances, Krell interjected, unable to contain his scientific curiosity. We caused them, Chen replied simply. A controlled experiment that seems to have worked as intended. It brought you here after all. Lyra felt her scales shift to a cautious amber. You deliberately created astronomical phenomena to attract attention. When you've been isolated as long as we have, sometimes you need to send up a flare, Chen said. I'm authorized to invite your vessel to our outpost for direct dialogue. My ship will escort you. As if emerging from the darkness itself, a sleek vessel appeared on their sensors, a ship that somehow had evaded their advanced detection systems until now. That shouldn't be possible, Mala muttered, checking and rechecking her tactical displays. Their stealth technology exceeds our best classified systems. Lyra made her decision. We accept your invitation, Captain Chen. Lead the way. The journey deeper into the Milky Way was tense but uneventful. The human vessel, as they learned their hosts called themselves, guided them past the ancient warning beacons and through a complex network of what appeared to be sensor arrays and defensive platforms, all carefully hidden to casual observation. 4 hours later, they approached a massive space station orbiting a nondescript red dwarf star. The station was unlike anything in Coalition records, an impossible megastructure that seemed to phase in and out of normal spacetime, parts of it existing in dimensions their sensors couldn't properly analyze. Welcome to Watchpoint Epsilon, Chen transmitted as they approached. One of our older outposts, but suitable for first contact procedures. The Astral Seeker docked within a specialized bay that adapted its environment to match their ship's life support parameters, another technological feat that impressed even Krell. Captain Lyra led a small delegation consisting of herself, Darwin, Krell, and Mala to meet their hosts. As the airlock cycled and the doors opened, they found themselves facing a reception committee of 5 humans, all wearing minimal protective gear that suggested confidence in their biological compatibility measures. A tall, dark-skinned human stepped forward. Captain Velthor, I am Director Amara Okafor, Diplomatic Corps of the Terran Alliance. Welcome to human space. Thank you, Director, Lyra replied formally. We're honored to make first contact with your species. Okafor's expression changed subtly. Not first contact, Captain. but perhaps the first honest contact in over 8,000 years. She gestured toward a conference room visible through a transparent barrier. Please, join us. We have much to discuss about why your coalition has been kept away from our galaxy for so long, and why those circumstances are about to change whether any of us are ready or not. The Guardians of the Dark. The conference room aboard Watchpoint Epsilon contained technological marvels that defied coalition understanding. Walls that seemed to ripple with dimensional instability, lighting that adjusted automatically to each species' visual comfort, and in the center, a holographic projection system that displayed star maps with unprecedented clarity. Director Okafor wasted no time on diplomatic niceties. 8,347 years ago, by your coalition timekeeping standards, a quarantine was established around the Milky Way galaxy. This was a mutual decision between our ancestors and the founding species of what would later become your coalition. Krell's crystalline form trembled with excitement. But this contradicts all our historical records. The coalition was formed only 5,000 years ago. Your official records, Okafor corrected gently. There was an earlier attempt at galactic cooperation, one that failed catastrophically. The knowledge was deliberately buried. Lyra's scales shifted to a deep purple of confusion and concern. Why would such important history be erased? To prevent panic, replied another human, a silver-haired man who introduced himself as Dr. Eli Nakamura, chief Sino-historian. The truth about what exists in the dark spaces between spiral arms of our galaxy was deemed too destabilizing for emerging spacefaring civilizations. The holographic display shifted, showing what appeared to be massive shadow-like entities moving through cosmic dust clouds. We call them the Void Dwellers, Okafor continued. Ancient entities that predate most stellar formation in this galaxy. They existed in dormancy until early interstellar civilizations, including primitive humanity, began experimenting with dimensional physics. Mela's armor plates clicked as she leaned forward. You're saying these creatures were awakened by technological development? Not exactly, Dr. Nakamura explained. They were awakened by the ripple effects of dimensional boundary breaches, what you'd call FTL travel. Each method of faster-than-light propulsion creates unique distortions in the dimensional membrane. Some are quieter than others. Your coalition drives are particularly loud, added a human scientist. They create quantum echoes that would resonate with the Void Dweller's dormant consciousness. One ship might pass unnoticed, but regular traffic would eventually trigger a awakening cascade. Captain Lyra processed this information, her mind racing. So the quarantine was to protect the rest of the galaxy from these entities. But why have humans remained inside? Why not evacuate? Okafor and her colleagues exchanged glances before she answered. Because somebody had to stay behind to maintain the seal. The Void Dwellers cannot be destroyed by conventional means. They exist partially outside our reality. But they can be contained. A hologram shifted again, showing an intricate network of enormous structures positioned throughout the Milky Way. A containment system of unimaginable scale. The ancient compact was clear. Okafor continued. Humanity would serve as the guardians, maintaining the dimensional barriers and warning away visitors. In exchange, we received technological assistance that accelerated our development by millennia. But why humans specifically? Darwin asked, his gelatinous form rippling with curiosity. Dr. Nakamura smiled sadly. Because of all the species present during the First Awakening, we were the most expendable. A young, primitive species from a single planet versus established multi-world civilizations. It was a pragmatic decision. Lyra felt her scales shift to a somber gray. You were sacrificed. We were preserved, corrected Okafor firmly. While isolated from the broader galaxy, we were given room to grow within our protected space. We developed along different technological paths than the Coalition, focusing on dimensional physics and quantum manipulation rather than traditional energy paradigms. But now something has changed. Lyra stated, remembering Chen's earlier words. You deliberately created quantum disturbances to attract attention. Okafor nodded grimly. The containment system is failing. After 8 millennia of constant maintenance and upgrades, we've reached the limits of what we can accomplish alone. The dimensional barriers are becoming unstable in ways our scientists cannot counter. The holographic display showed alarming ruptures in what appeared to be the fabric of reality itself, tears that seemed to be growing despite the humans' efforts to repair them. If the Void Dwellers escape the Milky Way, Dr. Nakamura said quietly, they will spread throughout all neighboring galaxies. Your coalition worlds would be among the first to fall. A deafening alarm suddenly pierced the conference room. Status displays flashed red as human personnel rushed to monitoring stations. Dimensional breach in progress. Called out a technician. Sector 87 Alpha, near the vessel's entry point. Captain Chen burst into the room, his expression grim. The Astral Seeker's quantum wake. It created a resonance pattern we didn't anticipate. A dweller is stirring. The main display shifted to show a portion of space that seemed to warp and darken, as though reality itself was being consumed by an expanding shadow. How bad? Okafor demanded. Category 3 emergence, Chen replied. Still containable, but we need to act quickly. Okafor turned to Lyra and her crew. We need your help. Your ship's quantum signature is what triggered this breach. We can use that same signature, properly modulated, to lure the entity back into dormancy. Mala stepped forward, her warrior instincts engaged. You want to use our ship as bait. As a beacon, corrected Dr. Nakamura. We can modify your drive systems to emit a counter-frequency that will help reveal the breach. But it must be deployed from your vessel, by your crew. Lyra looked at her officers, seeing the mixture of fear and determination in their postures. What happens if we fail? The breach widens, Okafor said simply. More dwellers awaken. Eventually, the containment fails completely. And if we succeed? Darwin asked. Then we begin a new chapter. The quarantine has served its purpose, but it's no longer sustainable. Humanity has guarded the darkness alone for too long. It's time for the Coalition to understand what exists in the shadows, and to join us in containing it. Lyra made her decision. Tell us what we need to do. The next 6 hours were a blur of frantic activity. Coalition technology merged with human dimensional science, as both crews worked to modify the Astral Seeker's quantum drive. When they finally launched, the modified ship emitted a strange harmonic vibration that seemed to resonate with the fabric of space-time itself. Captain Lyra stood on her bridge, watching as they approached the dimensional breach, a writhing darkness that defied scientific explanation. Within its depths, something vast and ancient stirred, reaching tentacle-like appendages of pure void toward the light of surrounding stars. Modulation at maximum, Krell reported from his station, his crystalline form vibrating with the same frequency as their modified engines. The entity is responding. The darkness seemed to pause, its expansion slowing as it sensed the quantum signature of their vessel. Slowly, almost curiously, it began to retract, following the precisely calculated frequency that the human scientists had determined would lull it back to dormancy. It's working, breathed Darwin, watching as the tear in reality began to close. Maintain position, Lyra ordered. Keep the frequency stable. For 3 tense hours, they held their position at the edge of oblivion, guiding the ancient entity back into its dimensional pocket. When the breach finally sealed with a flash of quantum energy, a cheer erupted across both human and coalition communication channels. Later, as the Astral Seeker docked once more at Watchpoint Epsilon, Lyra found herself standing with Director Okafor, looking out at the stars of the Milky Way. Your Coalition Council will have difficult decisions to make, Okafor said quietly. The truth about the Void Dwellers will challenge everything they thought they knew about the universe. They'll adapt, Lyra replied, her scales shifting to a determined gold, as humanity did when faced with an impossible burden. We need an alliance now, not isolation. Our containment technology has reached its limits. Your quantum sciences might provide the breakthrough we need for a permanent solution. Lyra turned to face the human director. 8,000 years ago, humanity was abandoned to guard the darkness alone. That ends today. The Coalition will stand with you. I'll make sure of it. As the astral seeker prepared to depart the Milky Way with its momentous news, Captain Lyra Velthor recorded one final log entry. We came seeking answers to quantum disturbances and found instead a species that has silently protected the galaxy, protected all galaxies for millennia. The quarantine of the Milky Way ends today, not because the danger has passed, but because the burden of containment must now be shared. Humanity has stood guard over the abyss for 8,000 years. They will stand alone no longer. The Coalition vessel slipped into quantum space, carrying with it the truth about the forbidden galaxy and the guardians who had sacrificed everything to keep the darkness at bay.